and welcome to KLC News. Our first story tonight is, of course, the Bag O' Day Shawl-Along. Are you doing it? Have you started yet? She's got 2 out so far. No, 3 now. 3. She puts out a piece of the Crochet Along, Shawl-Along every 5 days in April. So the 5th to 10th, 15th, 20th, 25th, and the 30th. And so I've been making that. I started it a couple of different times with different yarns, and then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make 2 of them. One with one kind of yarn, another with the other kind of yarn, and see what happens. So I just couldn't decide. So what I started with was this Happy Mail that I had gotten from Mama G. The ballerina pink and the something orange and the nuclear green. I don't remember what the colors were, what she called them. But I finally got a Swift. But this first one I did before the Swift came because I couldn't wait any longer. So I did it by hand, and boy, did that take a long time. But so I've been using that yarn for this. It will need to be blocked, and since this is a superwash merino, I know I can. But it's a very busy yarn, right? It's busy. It's busy, variegated. Well, it's a long variegated, very short stripe. And so I really like, though, I was worried about it, but I think it's just a long enough variegated to where some places you can actually see some of the stitches. They're not, it gives an attitude, you know. It has a personality, but I don't like to change yarns in projects. I try to have that just be done automatically. Probably should check my hair. So the other one that I had started and put aside, I picked it back up, frogged it out, and started again with a smaller hook. This one I'm using a 5mm hook. I think that's what Crystal is using, but this yarn is a fingering weight. It's a pretty sturdy fingering weight, and so it's holding its own on the stitches. So the other one that I had started, and I think I'd used a 5mm hook when I started it, and this is lace weight. And so I didn't like the way the stitches were looking at all. Plus, because this is lace weight that comes in those 4 strands. So, but I love this color, and there's not a whole lot of white to begin with, but there's enough white. So this whole first part is just white. But I used 4mm, probably should be 3.5. But I used a 4mm. It looks pretty shiny. See, now you can see these stitches. I just started this one today, so yeah. I'm almost done. I'm about halfway through tutorial number 3 on this one, and there are 6 of them. And then this one is just the first one. This is day 1. Love the drape on this. Look at that. It's an angel's wing. I'm doing this one first because I'm keeping this one. And then I move on to this one so I know what I'm doing. I don't have to think about it as much, and I can say a few little prayers for the person I'm making it for. So anything can be a prayer shawl if you say prayers or think good thoughts about that person. I saw somebody today who was it? Oh, a Cozy Cottage, a Cozy Cottage. She made some prayer hats. Because I couldn't figure, I didn't want to change yarns. I wanted to have color in this one, so I just used the variegated. And this one is just going to be a slow changing yarn, but with the very complex stitching, the stitchery that Crystal has put in here. Which do you think is best? I know it's best to do it exactly the way she did it, because she's changing every row or every few rows depending upon the stitch combinations she's using. But I don't know. I like them both. I think they both have a place. But what do you think? What's your favorite? Or is anybody doing it like out of real DK I wish I could get my hands on some mandala. I think that would be really cool. And that's a 3 weight. Anybody using a 4 worsted weight? And what's that looking like? I want to know. If for some reason you don't know about Bag of Days Crystal's Shawl-Along, I'll put a link to it in my description box here, where you can see what that's all about. You can join in on the fun. Everybody's doing it. Come on. Monsters have attacked Bangkok. I've seen these monsters. I've seen the stories. They're all over in the US, and now they've come here. I got some googly eyes, and I made some little twirly monsters. And I also made a squid. Well, is that an octopus? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it's a squid. Out of blanket yarn, out of camel hair, out of regular yarn, 4 weight, out of cotton yarn, like kitchen cotton, and then out of some bamboo. And then the chenille yarns also. So I wanted to use all the different types of yarn that I had, different feeling of yarn that I had to send to my granddaughters, mostly the little one, so that she can feel all the different textures and feels of the different kinds of yarn. And also for the big one, because she'll make up all kinds of stories about these little guys and entertain my daughter and son-in-law for hours, I'm sure. Our next story is to answer the question, what do I do with a single skein of Universal Bloom? I love this yarn. I've tried to use it in a couple of different things. When I got it the first time, I used it with a very large hook. It's roving. It gets very tiny and it's very, very big. It's quite a roving, which is what I love about it. But I used the bigger end of the spectrum and made some sleeves. Ta-da! These sleeves. So this is that Universal Bloom, and I love the way it looked, and I put it down here on the cuff too. Put it right here, and just used like a 9mm crochet hook and just stretched it out as far as it would go so I could make these sleeves. So it's almost like, oops. So it's almost like I made a sweater out of it, but this wasn't even a full hank. So I had never used it with a smaller crochet hook, probably the one that it called for. I don't know, I didn't even look at it. I rarely look at that. And so I had another one, the same color, it's a different color. And I looked online for a pattern for something that used 1 skein of the Universal Bloom. It's a Japanese knot bag. But look at that, I can't remember now, is it a 4mm I think I used? And so, you know, it's a Japanese knot bag. And this is 1 skein, and I think I had like this much left. 1 skein of Universal Bloom. The Japanese knot bag, you make it short, you make it tall, you pull it through the short, put it on your arm, and there you go. I am in love with this bag. Look at this, it's kind of called pooling, but it kind of sits together, the thicker parts and then some of the thinner parts. So it's really, I really like it. And it's like a moss stitch up here. Is it single, chain 1 single? This is all single on the bottom. And then it's single, chain 1 single, so that some of the fatter parts would actually fit in with the little parts with the smaller hook. So I just love this. I love this. So if you have a single skein of Universal Bloom sitting around, you could do this. Or if you had a single skein and you found the perfect thing for it, what did you do? What did you do? I'm sure that the next time I'm in the States, I'm getting another skein. Can't afford a lot of it, so I'll probably just get 1 skein because I want to get some other things when I'm there. Our next story is about blankets and how I keep track of all of my yarn going into these kind of scrap blankets, but not scrap blankets. The first one that I'm working on is the Zoom Sisters, Zoom Aunties, whatever, blanket. Where's the beginning? This is the beginning. And then it's kind of a stitch sampler, all of our favorite stitches. And I just love this. And I'm about halfway done. But I am using for this my kind of 4-weight, worsted weight yarn that I can find here is this Milk Cotton, the 5-ply. And so once I use it in here, this is 50 grams. And so each different stitch, each band of color is somewhere between 50 and 100 grams. So never fully 100 grams. But so I use it, and then what I do is I put it into it's like a laundry basket that I keep right next to my little couch, my little nest. You know, everybody has a little nest, little crochet nest out in front of the TV. So I put it in there because I've used some of it, so I don't know how much is left. My other blanket that I'm working on, which I've shown you, get stuck, is this, but it's growing, is this Llama Mama Kayla Sweetheart blanket, although I'm not using the Sweetheart colors as she did, but I'm kind of doing the same thing. I started with the 2 squares in the middle with the 4-weight, so I'm using the leftovers from this blanket, throw it in that little container, this little double bucket, a laundry thing, put this in there, and then that's for like, I do 5 rounds of solid, and then I just grab a couple of this 3-ply, which is like a fingering weight. I know I've shown these to you before, so I have a lot of these. And so I grab a couple of these, not a full one, all my scraps. I've been emptying out all my bags and boxes of all my balled up scrap yarn, because I guess it's the season of the scraps and the season of the grannies. So I'm doing a scrappy granny. So instead of going through and winding up a ball like Llama Mama Kayla is, like Kayla's doing, I'm just grabbing them. And so I try to change out the thin one when one of them finishes. Where'd it go? When one of them finishes of the little scrap balls that I have, then I just tie another one onto that one, and then I have the other one that's continue going, so it kind of keeps a little bit of consistency, not really, but and then when that one runs out, I put on another ball to that one and just keep crocheting until I have about 5 rounds, and then I grab some solids. I've never had something so large for scrap yarn, but when I started going around and grabbing my scraps that I have in every little nook and cranny, which I know you do too, and I started putting them in there, it filled up before I got through all of my scrap yarn. So I needed something that big, and when you're working on blankets, you kind of need something that big. I'm not going to run out. I just keep using some of those scraps. And our final story tonight here on KLC News is hooker versus hooker. Yes, hooker versus hooker. Now, if you don't know what hooker versus hooker is, well, you've been missing out for a few months now. This is Lala from Mad Mimi Crochet and Farming and an Alaskan crafter, Jan. This is their brainchild, and they have found a wonderful way to pull in subscribers and podcasters alike into this kind of competition. I'd say this because they won't even say that. It's not really a competition. You don't really win anything. However, you do win some bragging rights. And I know that Lala and Jan are trying their darndest to win this thing. This month, for April, they're doing an amigurumi. So what they do is they draw out of a hat the names. A podcaster, they draw a podcaster who's volunteering to do this project with them, and also a subscriber who doesn't have an active channel, who will also be doing the project with them. And then there's two more people who are drawn, one to pick the colors and one to pick the project. Nobody who's doing it for this monthly project will have chosen the project. So that's the deal, or the colors. So somebody else picks the colors, somebody picks the project, and then that's what Lala and Jan and the subscriber and the podcaster all have to do. Then at the end of the month, they get on live and they show what they've done. And then the viewers will vote for who they think did the best job without being disqualified. So what I have done, I've done a few. I've done one every single month. So they did a test run the first month, which I think was last November, October or November, I think. But they did a wreath. And so that's all they said was a wreath. You could use a wreath form if you wanted. Where'd mine go? And then they prescribed the colors. So here's my wreath. I don't have like a Joann or Michael's or Hobby Lobby to go to get a wreath form. So I just knitted out this donut. It's a donut. And then just made some squares and the kitty cat stitch and a little flower to put in there. So that was my wreath, and I have it hanging up in my living room. So nice. This is all milk cotton because, you know, that's what I can get here inexpensively. Then they started up in January, and I think, now I'm sorry if I'm incorrect on this, but this is just my recollection. In January they did a bag, and so that was what was said, was it needed to be a bag, and they gave the prescribed colors. And so I already gave this away to a coworker of mine who actually has a Dungeons and Dragons club at school and likes that kind of thing. And so it's a dice bag with a dragon, because it's the year of the dragon in the Chinese years. So I made it, that was my first dragon of the year. So I made that and gave it to Maggie so that she can use it. I don't think she's using it though. I think that she's put it up in her room and is afraid to use it. I hope that she has a chance to use it. It's what things are for, to be used, I think. But she was really excited. I was really happy that she liked it. Then the next month in February, the project picked was a plant. A plant. However you want to do a plant. Did a plant. And so you have to go back and rewatch those to see the fabulous plants that were done. And I did not get this one done in the month that it was in February. But I was working on it. But I made a bag, because my bag wasn't really a bag. It was a dice bag. I mean, it was a bag. And then this is a sunflower in a pot with leaves on it. But it's also, you know, it has a lid, so you can put stuff in there. Yeah, sunflower is the plant, so I made that. March was a basket containing 3 related items. So people got a little creative in what they considered a basket. So did I. A basket just holds stuff, right? It holds stuff. I did a basket. It's something that holds something very important. It's a skull, and it holds a brain. I teach psychology, and so this was something that I wanted to do to keep in my room, because we talk about the brain a lot. And I had to use white. I didn't use black. I used the blue instead of the black of the prescribed colors. So this is my little Day of the Dead skull, sugar skull. That's what it is, a sugar skull. And the hat, I had to use white so it looked like a skull. And take off the hat. So this is item number 1 in on the basket. Take off the hat, and there's a brain. So item number 2 is a brain. So if you know anything about a brain, these are the lobes. Here's the cerebellum down here, and the frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal lobe, and then the language center, the Broca, and the Wernicke's on the outside. So on the inside, that's the left hemisphere. So you go to the right hemisphere, and I didn't cover it with the lobe, so this is supposed to indicate what's inside. And so these are some of the structures that we study. So got the hippocampus and the thalamus and the hypothalamus and the pituitary, the amygdala, and the pineal gland. So that's the inside of the brain of the structures, some of the structures that we study. So that's the brain that's in the basket of the hat. That's only 2 items though. It's only 2 items. The third item is, of course, a brain fart. Yes, my Thai students don't understand what a brain fart is, but I explained it to them. I don't know if they got it, but a brain fart. Really? I thought that would have made it around the world by now. But so you put a little brain fart in there, put the brain back in there. Gotta have the brain in there, or this skull won't stay up. And then the lid to the basket. So there's that. I love him. He does not have a name. Scully. That's ridiculous, isn't it? Herbert. What? Something that has to do with brain. Brian. Because, you know, Brian, brain, use the same letters. Yeah. And finally, this month, as I had mentioned before, the month of April is amigurumi. That's the project. Amigurumi. It's kind of wide open, but then they did prescribe some colors. And so I just thought caterpillar, and each ball of the caterpillar be a different color. But I thought I wanted to make the caterpillar have a little bit of motion this time, because I made just a straight caterpillar. This time I wanted to add a little bit of fun to it. So I wanted to add some shapes. But I ended up having to have so many of the segments of the body to make the shape that I wanted that it's not really just a caterpillar anymore. It's an inchworm. And I didn't know, because I never thought about it, but an inchworm is a type of caterpillar. And I forget now, I did a lot of, maybe I'll put it up there, the kind of butterfly it turns into, or moth, I think it's a moth. But remember the inchworm from Hasbro? And we can use things for the face. I didn't have the right kind of mouth, and I don't know. I wanted to use this button. So I don't know, he, she, they, and have a vest sewn on and some reins for whoever ends up sitting on it to ride the inchworm. Inchworm, inchworm. Hello, hello my darlings. That's my inchworm. Oh, I got it twisted, there we go. So I didn't put feet in the middle because they have like 2 or 3 or 4 on the front and 2 or 3 on the back. So I didn't put the feet there. But this is no-sew, except for, of course, no, none of those. The only thing I sewed on was the reins and the vest, which you don't have to do. I just made this from looking at the inchworm toy, although it's chenille, so they won't stand up, and for the saddle, and then just made a little hat and put the antenna through the hat to hold it on. I'm still in for the drawing as a volunteer, so we'll see. I think the new drawing for May is on April 20th. April 20th. On one of their channels. Mad Mimi or Alaskan Crafter. One of the two. So I finished mine. I'm really anxious to see what they're doing. They're talking about it. Well, in Zoom, they're talking about it. Not about what it is. They will not share with each other. Nobody. Nope. No. But they do talk about how it's. Oh, they've talked about it on their channel too. That they think they might have. Well, Jan and Lala. They've talked about how they think they might have bit off a little more than they can chew. Juan is the podcaster. Juan, the yarn addict. He's the podcaster that's playing this month, and he hasn't talked about it at all on his channel that I've seen. And I can't remember the name of the subscriber, so you'll have to watch. You'll have to watch and see. I think the reveal for the amigurumi for the month of April is going to be like May 1st, I think, maybe, on one of their channels. But just look, I think it's hashtag hooker versus hooker. Hooker vs hooker, all one word. I think there's a hashtag out there. Very cute. Very cute. It's warm. Thank you all for stopping in for a little bit of KLC news from Bangkok. And I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, I will sign off with a be true to yourself, be kind to yourself and to others, and find your joy. I love you guys. Bye.